Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
I'm not trying not to say the word liberal today at all. I hear it so much I want to puke from it. I'm not going to say Trump once today. As much as I respect Donald Trump's policies, I have never, ever lived through a period where there's been not a day that goes by that a president's name is not mentioned from morning till night somewhere on the internet or on radio or on television. It's crazy. I never saw anything. Imagine if all day long in the 1940s you heard the name Roosevelt. I mean, let's say you were alive. Or all day long you heard Eisenhower did this and Eisenhower did that. Eisenhower was seen eating a Slurpee. Eisenhower didn't eat a Slurpee. Eisenhower caused the hurricane. Eisenhower doesn't like the press. It's impossible to believe we're living through this. So I'm not going to talk about any of that, even though I just did, to dismiss it. I want to talk a little bit about health and fitness for a minute. And also, who do you trust more, the media or Trump? That's an easy one. I read that there's a misery index, and people are more miserable than ever today, which I found to be interesting in a strange way. People are more miserable today than ever in history. Well, I can't say in history. I would say that during the Holocaust or the plague, people might have been more miserable. But someone did a thing on misery. They do a misery index. It's an interesting topic, right? Turns out that the United States, we, are more miserable than anyone on earth except Greeks. Now, I understand why Greeks are miserable. Greeks are most miserable people on the planet. And that's because ever since Plato came along and introduced logic, they've been miserable because they had to live with logic and reason. Look what it's done to them. They're now the most miserable people on the planet. I mean, if you want to be happy, have no reason and no logic and just vote for a Democrat and listen to, who do you fear more, Florence or Maxine Waters? I think Maxine Waters is more dangerous than Hurricane Florence to the safety of the United States of America, that is. You know what just happened, right? Guy pulled out a switchblade, tried to stab a Republican in California. That got buried by the local newspaper. Another one burned a Republican campaign headquarters. That got buried by the vermin in the media. And it's all being triggered by people like Maxine Waters, in my opinion. That's why I don't want to talk about him. Because if I was in Congress, I would not stop filibustering until Maxine Waters was censored for provoking violence amongst the morons who believe in her. So I want to talk about health and fitness. I've been involved in health and fitness my whole life. And I'm gonna have a real fun day today for a little bit. We're going to also talk about cryogenics today. That seems to be a big thing. I read about it last night with Mark Wahlberg goes into this chamber that lowers temperature by 100 degrees, but Sean LeBron or whatever, LeBron LeSean, and others that I'm not supposed to know about it. I don't know who they are, but Sean LeBron does it. It's a big trend now, the cryogenics, is to freeze yourself at 100 degrees below zero in some nitrogen tank, and everyone has the word. They don't know anything about what they're talking about because most of them are not college educated with regard to health and science. But they all say lowers inflammation. That's the latest bugaboo, inflammation. You ask any illiterate about health, they talk about inflammation now. A year ago was another topic they were lowering. Years ago it was cholesterol, then it was inflammation. Okay, I'm going to tell you some things today that you're going to find interesting. But I'm going to run a little contest. Since I was pretty famous as a health writer, actually I was a health guru for many years before I went into talk radio, and I love the field, and I did it to save myself because of the genetics in my family. I'm not blaming anyone. I thought I'd be dead by 30. And so far, I'm still here. So I was on the most restricted diets you can imagine. I discovered the Osawa Zen macrobiotic diet when I was 18 years old because I had killer migraines since I was a little boy, and nothing could cure them. And I went on the right diet by a process of elimination. I got rid of my migraines. And when I found that I could control something to do with my health, as severe as a migraine, by eliminating sugar, sucrose, I was amazed. And then I started to introduce things and change and this and that. So here I am many years later. I've written health books. So here's the contest. Anyone listening to the Savage Nation today who can tell me what health books I have written, which you have read or you still own in your library, you're going to win a prize, a brand new copy of Stop Mass Hysteria out in 2 weeks from today. Because I've written a lot of health books before I became a talk show host. And in many ways, it's the same mission. My mission as a health writer was to improve the health of the American people and those who read my books or read my books. Just as I'm still trying to improve the mental health of America by using analytical techniques to show you to think for yourself and always question authority. Always question authority. That used to be an adage of liberalism, question authority. Unfortunately, today liberals do not question their authorities. They worship their authorities. They're kind of involved in their whole authorities. And sadly, and the truth is, on the other side, people don't question our authorities enough either. And if we get dragged into a war against Russia through Trump's mistake of bombing Idlib, then it means that you're no better than the liberals who follow blindly as well. Okay? But I touched on that yesterday. So I want to go into the misery thing, and then I want to start with Mark Wahlberg's daily regimen, which I read last night on the show before the show ended. I wish I had it in front of me. I don't know what I did with it. I think it was just emailed back to me. Because I was amazed that anyone could live like that. Here, Wahlberg regimen. He gets up at 2:30 in the morning. He's 47 years old. Well, let me end by saying this. He gets up at 2:30 in the morning, 30 minutes for prayers, which I really admire. After breakfast at 3:15 in the morning, I know where I am at 3:15 in the morning, he does a 95-minute workout, followed by another meal, shower, snack, golf. Then he goes into a cryo chamber, all before 10:30. He goes to bed at 7:30 at night. Now, the cryotherapy is using liquid nitrogen to plunge the air to temps below 100 degrees centigrade to alleviate muscle and joint pain. Then he has an hour and a half set aside for a shower, followed by half an hour devoted to golf. I don't know where that fits in. I can respect all of it except the golf, which I think lowers a person's IQ. And then he goes to the eating. He said, I start out with steel oats. He doesn't mean they're made of oats. When you say steel oats, it doesn't mean you're eating oats that are made of steel. It means steel-cut oats. I don't know why that's supposed to be better for you. I could eat oatmeal. I don't know why it has to be steel-cut. Why couldn't it be cut another way? Like, what do you mean, steel oats? Blueberries and peanut butter. I live on blueberries and oats. Actually, I live more on tuna fish than I do on that. But I like, when I want to clean my body out, I eat oatmeal, blueberries, and cottage cheese that has no lactate in it. Lactate, cottage cheese, low fat. He said then he has a protein shake, 3 turkey burgers. Turkey burgers are poison, garbage. Turkeys are filthy. I'm sorry, they're not good. 5 pieces of sweet potato at about 5:30 in the morning. Now, why does he have 5 pieces of sweet potato instead of 4? Or why doesn't he have 5.5 pieces of sweet potato? How did he come up with 5? At 8 o'clock in the morning, he has 10 turkey meatballs. Again, turkey is filth. Unless it's a fresh turkey that you shoot on a farm, I would never eat that garbage. Why is he eating a turkey meatball? The theory is turkey meat is better for you. It isn't. At 10:30 a.m., he says, I have a grilled chicken salad with 2 hard-boiled eggs. Why not 1? Why not 3? Olives, avocado, cucumber, tomato, lettuce. All right. Then at 1 o'clock, he has a New York steak with green peppers. Okay, fine. At 3:30, he has a grilled chicken with bok choy. Very PC. Couldn't be with spinach. It has to be with bok choy. At 5:30, 6 o'clock, he says, I have a beautiful piece of halibut. He sounds like Trump now. Beautiful piece of halibut or cod. What do you mean beautiful? What, is it happy to be on the plate? Did it win a beauty contest? What do you mean beautiful piece? I thought about that all night. Like, what do you mean a beautiful piece of halibut or cod or sea bass? What do you mean beautiful piece? It was working on me. What do you mean by a beautiful piece of halibut? And then I thought he's from Boston. And if you're from Boston, you like fish. And in a way, this is like a thing about childhood. He says, then I have a lot of aqua hydrate during the day. That's it. And he spends time with his kids, which is beautiful. I like that. Works out a lot. Do all his stuff while his family's asleep. He said, by the time I've gotten up, worked out, done all my stuff, played golf, the kids are just waking up and my wife's sleeping in. That's kind of a put down in a way. That's like a slam. I thought about that as well. My wife's sleeping in. That's like a negative. The kids are just waking up. It's another negative. I think it'd be the hardest thing in the world to be Mark Wahlberg's kid. Imagine if I had a father like this that got up 2:30 in the morning, was like a zealot. Wahlberg was named the highest paid actor in 2017 and remains one of Hollywood's most sought after leading men. I like him as an actor. I think he's terrific. and he's got this tremendous regimen. However, as I said yesterday, I'll get back to me when he's 70. I'd like to see Mark Wahlberg at 65, not 48. Give him 20 years of that regimen. I'd like to see what he looks like. So Professor Brewer told the BBC he may not be possible to keep up such a schedule over the long term. He said, I would suspect in 5 or 10 years' time he may well not be living that type of extreme lifestyle. Either mentally he will have lost the willpower to do that, or physically his body will have said enough is enough. The message for the vast majority of the population is if you don't need to do anywhere near as much as that in order to gain a level of health and well-being that most doctors and health professionals would recommend. Now, I agree 100%. I believe in the Tao, the middle way. The Tao of health is the middle way. That's a tough thing to understand because America is an extremist nation. Either we're extreme leftists or extreme rightists. Either we love too much or we hate too much. Either we trust too much or we trust no one. And it's the same with health fads. They come and they go. As I say, now the health fad is, the thing is inflammation. Everything's inflammation. Every illiterate who never went to college is now lecturing me on health. Inflammation. They all know how to reduce inflammation. So, for example, my regimen does not consist of getting up at 2:30 in the morning. I was a big zealot, by the way, in my 30s. When I first had my first child, I was panicked about dying young, so I was very careful. I wanted to live long enough to, play ball with my son. So I went on a very strict no meat. I didn't eat meat for 20 years. I started eating meat when I went back into radio, which is 25 years ago. I thought it would kill me, but I figured it was worth it. I remember there was a cheap Chinese restaurant near the KGO studios at that time over at, what street is that, Front Street? Hunan. And I wouldn't eat bad Chinese food like that ever, but I needed food to do a radio show. So a lot of the radio people went over to this restaurant. I started going. They're greasy, horrible, but the best in the world. Hunan. And I just loved it. I figured, look, I got it. It's a trade-off. I'm like an opera singer doing talk radio. I need to fuel the boiler, and I need what I need, right? So if I need to eat a Chinese lunch, I'll eat a Chinese lunch. And I figured, look, it may kill me, but I got to do the radio show. Well, that was in 1994. Well, fortunately for me, the restaurant closed a few years ago, so I don't do that every day. But I'm saying I don't eat like I did when I was a zealot. And do you know that I wrote articles for Runners magazine in the late 70s? You don't know that part about me. I was very, very trim. I weighed 132 pounds. I used to run up mountains. I was a maniac, a zealot and a maniac. I wouldn't touch a piece of meat. I was like a rabbi in a pork store around most restaurants and food. I would look and inspect everything with a hawk eye. It was like trafe to me. Anything with cholesterol or fat I wouldn't touch. I drove people crazy. No one could feed me. I go to my poor mother, may she rest in peace, back in New York. What food she hadn't cooked. Well, it killed all the men around her. I know I was in line for the next guillotine. They all died in their 50s from the heart attacks and the food they were fed. You never saw such fatty, horrendous food in your life. So I'd go there, come back from where we were living when the kids were little, and she'd serve the same food. She wouldn't modify, and I would say, I don't eat that. Why must you put out greasy meat, Ma? Why? You know I don't eat that. It's an insult. She'd go, She put it out anyway. She liked it, that's all. I would ask for halibut or fish, which she would do once in a while, but the diet, a disaster. Heavy pieces of horrendous, like Eastern European ignoramus food. So I wouldn't eat it. So, okay, that was always a challenge. Then she had candy, God bless her, on the table that I wouldn't let the kids eat. Every time I turned my back, she'd give them like an M&M and go, she says, they love them. I said, yeah, but they're bad for them. What are you giving them M&Ms for? And those little Hershey's Kisses. They're poisoned. So I was like that. Now I'm different. As I say, speed the clock up. I have modified my diet now. I'm going to give you an example when I come back of what my health regimen consists of today. Before I take my first break, I'd just like to say to you, it does not consist of getting up at 2:30 in the morning and having a turkey meatball. No, it does not. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Have you ever taken your car in for an oil change? Your mechanic finds something wrong, and bingo, surprise, you're hit with a huge repair bill. And what happens when you're not covered by the manufacturer's warranty? You're paying out of your own pocket to fix it, that's what. That's why I recommend extended vehicle protection from CarShield. If your car has 5,000 to 150,000 miles, CarShield can save you from paying for high repair bills. Replacing your engine or even a simple sensor can cost thousands. But when you're protected by CarShield, you can have your favorite mechanic or dealership fix your car. It's your choice. CarShield also provides 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. Get covered by the ultimate in extended vehicle protection. Get CarShield. How? Call 800-CAR-6100. 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 Mention code SAVAGE or visit carshield.com. Use code SAVAGE to save a big 10%. That's carshield.com or 800-CAR-6100. Code SAVAGE to save 10%. A deductible may apply. You know, these are very interesting topics to me today on the show. One is this thing about who do you trust more, the media or Trump? And, I put it on Twitter. And what I have here is a lot of people who worship Donald Trump. Very dangerous. You should not worship anyone, especially a politician. That's number one. I take that for the way I'm saying it. Don't worship anyone. He's only a man, for God's sakes. And you see people, they make him into a godlike figure. Now, on the other side, you got people who are idiotic, who turn him into a demon, like Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi. Those on the left who are just as stupid, more stupid, as a matter of fact, to blame even a hurricane on him. That's how crazy they are. So, it's very hard to keep your head while all those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, but I try to do that every day. So I'm talking about this topic of health and fitness, which I've been involved with since the early, 70s, when my first published book was Earth Medicine, Earth Food. And that book was in print for over 20 years in many, many, many languages. It's beautiful to see that book in German, in Swedish, in Danish. And so I've written many health books as an educator is what it was. I'm not claiming to be Linus Pauling. I was an educator. I took the best knowledge from the best people and combined it in a populist way so that people could understand it and apply it to their lives. And many of the things that you are doing today, I was writing about 30 years ago. I wrote a book called Reducing the Risk of Alzheimer's, because for several years I was involved in Alzheimer's research, and I put together a small institute called the Alzheimer's Research Institute, but because I was an independent scientist, it was extremely hard to get any funding. Either you went through government agencies, and they were not funding anything to do with preventing the amyloid plaques, to do with diet, nutrition, or aluminum. I had to go to private sources to get the money, and I couldn't keep it going and keep a family going. But what I'm saying is I've been in this health world a very long time. And believe me, I have a lot of wisdom to offer the world today, both in health and politics. They are interconnected.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-SAVAGE.
Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand the business, to go on vacation, to buy a new car, remember? But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very, very risky. Listen, according to The Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper I just read, it made my hair stand on end. You better be careful when you go to the bank. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you and I for the government. And then they report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. What does that mean? Get The Secret War on Cash now by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? You heard me. You better read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 800-289-2646. The new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading The Secret War on Cash. It's free if you call 800-289-2646 right now.
Here's your
All right, so we're talking about, we started with Mark Wahlberg's zealous physical regimen, getting up to 30, all that. And then I told you I was a zealot when I was yet in my 30s. I'd run up mountains. I wrote for Runner's Magazine. I wouldn't touch a piece of meat. And things changed as I went into radio. I needed the energy to do a daily show. It's much different than almost any other form of entertainment or activity, because your mind has to be sharp for hours a day. You can't miss a word. If you're an actor, you can take breaks. You're reading a script. You don't really have to think that much, except how to look or how to do the part, I guess. But that's not as heavy a thought I was trying to analyze topics and then handle callers. So I needed to fuel my brain. And my brain needs a lot of protein, especially animal protein. So I was talking about that. Then I'm talking about the misery index. A new article came out, says a lot of people are miserable these days. And it was a big study by Gallup, 154,000 people in more than 145 countries released today the so-called negative experience index. It's an average of people's reports of their daily levels of worry, stress, physical pain, sadness, and anger. Highest level since Gallup began measuring the data 10 years ago. And the U.S. is really high up there, higher than the average around the world, because we work harder than anywhere else, except for Greece, which is higher. The Greeks all say they were stressed a lot more. Very, very high. And I jokingly said, because the Greeks have been nervous and stressed since Aristotle, who gave them a logic. And since they've been logical, they've been miserable. If you're not logical and you're stupid, you don't worry too much. Your stress is low. You're probably in low physical pain if you're a dummy. You're not sad or angry if you're a dumbbell. So I was asking myself, you, the people, what do you think is missing? Worry, stress, physical pain, sadness, anger. Why is it so high in America? Well, they came up with a reason. And the reason is political anxieties, money and work are big stresses in America's lives. People worry about the political climate of the country. They worry about work. And 59% believe that this is the lowest point in our nation's history that they can remember, which is absolutely crazy. This is because of the psychopaths in the media, like those who run CNN and MSNBC, who continually foment hatred and discontent in the country, while we have the most booming economy in modern memory. We're at peace, not at war. There are no riots other than those caused by Maxine Waters and those kind of incendiary individuals who thrive on hatred and demagoguery. Country's at peace. Economy is booming. Everyone who wants to work is working. There's no hunger. And yet people are miserable because idiots in the media keep fomenting their discontent, which is a very dangerous thing for society. And as you know, yesterday, a man tried to stab a Republican in the Bay Area of San Francisco, but his switchblade didn't work. And then a Republican headquarters was burned somewhere, I think, in Oregon, again by a left-winger, again promoted by MSNBC, CNN, Maxine Waters, who every day tell them if you see a Republican out there, go up to them and confront them, basically. So we do have reasons for these things. There are triggers. There are triggers for it. And when you yell fire in a crowded theater, as Maxine Waters does, there are punishments for yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, either she's crazy or she's crazy, one or the other. I don't know who she thinks she's talking to with this kind of rhetoric, but she's got to be stopped by the U.S. Congress. But that's a topic for another day. I don't want to get into it. I'm not a congressman. I want to talk about health, fitness. So from my point of view, my zealous days are over. The days of me being a zealot are long over. I put on a little weight. I'm not 130 pounds anymore. So what's my daily regimen? First of all, I'm still a mega vitamin person. I have been a massive mega vitamin person ever since I learned about it from Linus Pauling, Richard Cunyon, great MD here in San Francisco, friend of mine, and Bob Cathcart, medical doctor, a genius in the field, passed away a number of years ago. So I keep a medicine cabinet in my house since the kids have been young. I know it's crazy. I learned it from someone. I have a whole cabinet in my kitchen that doesn't have dishes in it or glasses. Instead, it has dozens of different vitamins, nutrients, and we take them ad libitum as we want them. So, for example, I take a high dose of vitamin C powder every day for the last 40 years. To me, it's like life-giving. I'm just saturated. My tissue is saturated with ascorbate. And the powder is the most important thing to remember because most vitamin C tablets are innocuous. They have nothing in them. By the time you take them in manufacturing, you're getting no vitamin C into your tissues. So that's just one little tip. And then you got to know how to take it. So for example, the last few days I had a cold coming on. I felt it coming on because of the dinner I went to Sunday night in that outdoor atrium that no one told me would be outdoor, like eating in Stalingrad, in the rubble of Stalingrad. No one said bring a scarf, bring a jacket. They sat us outdoor like we were like bums. I'll get into that another time of my discontent with organized religion at any level in a few minutes as part of my regimen, but I still have faith in God. I mean, I have to have God, or I wouldn't even be here. That's number three. And by the way, that ties into the whole reason there's so much misery in the world right now. Worry, stress, physical pain, sadness, and anger. I think one of the biggest changes in our societies today is the loss of faith in God and loss of connectivity through our religion with the fellow man. Because never forget that the church has always been a social gathering. A congregation is a social gathering of like-minded individuals who you share your faith with, and it gives you a sense of community. And once the faith in God disappeared, people lost their connectivity to fellow men who believe, and they lost their community of belief. And then they fall apart. They're miserable because no man is an island unto himself, in plain English. Maybe we think we can be, but you mull around all day long on your own on Instagram or on one of your stupid devices or staring at a screen, you wonder why you're miserable? Of course you're miserable. You have no human beings in your life. Remember the other statement that I taught you years ago. Life is with people. Life is with people. You're always happier with people you can communicate with. As my mother would say many years back, when one of her friends lost a daughter to a heroin overdose, not my mother, but my mother's friend, this young girl, I saw her grow up as a little child. She became an artist and hung around in the Chelsea Hotel in Manhattan, and she died of a heroin overdose. It was very tragic. Well, her mother went to pieces. She had a nervous breakdown, is what they called it those days. She wouldn't get out of bed. My mother went upstairs to her apartment in the Bronx and bathed her, the mother, fed her, talked to her, brought her back to life. And she used to say to me, Michael, just remember, you don't really need a psychiatrist. In my opinion, she would say, I think you just need a good friend. Well, who has a good friend like my mother of blessed memory? No, I don't know where there's a friend like that anymore. Would come over and bathe you and feed you and listen to you. Do they exist anymore? Maybe, somewhere, who knows? But the point I'm making is that with the loss of religion, the loss of God, the loss of faith, people are empty. So that's a big part of fitness, which is this spiritual fitness. You know, a spiritual fitness is just as important as a health fitness. It's good to get up at 4 a.m. and take a turkey meatball and look at your abs in the mirror and show them on Instagram. But you could be empty inside. Most of them are empty. What girl in her right mind would do that except the daughter of an actor? Every minute to show her body, her bikini on a motorcycle. I'm supposed to think that's the first woman I ever saw in my life. Every minute, flash, flash, flash. There used to be a word for that. And there still is a word for that. Exhibitionist. But today the word exhibitionist doesn't exist anymore. So unless you're not unless you are an exhibitionist, you don't even exist in this society. And it shows you how far we have fallen as human beings, that our spiritual side has been completely denuded. So what am I saying to you about a health and fitness regimen? First of all, I'm about 90%. I maintain my own fitness regimen at about a 90% level. I don't push for that 100% because that energy and that stress of pushing for that extra 10% of perfection is what will kill you faster than anything else. Do you know that? You listen to me on that one. That's like saying, you know, my house is really nice, but it's not perfect. There's still a few corners I didn't do right. Like I don't really like that table over there, or I think that lamp is wrong. But if you were to spend the energy required to go from that 95 to 100, you'd go crazy. It wouldn't be worth the stress. So you leave it alone and you're comfortable in that house. In the same way, give yourself a break, push your regimen to 90%, and you'll feel better. You won't have as much stress. That's how I approach it. Again, it's the Zen way, the middle way. The middle way. The middle way. It's been taught since time immemorial by philosophers. We've forgotten that as well. Everything is seen from an extremist point of view, whether it's politics or health and diet. Extremist, extremist, extremist. Instead of saying don't eat meat, so eat meat less, eat it once or twice a week. You don't have to eat it 3 times a day now. Or you see idiots doing things that you cannot believe make no sense. And then they come up with ideas that make no sense because they have no science background. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I'm into this topic now. I ride my bicycle every day. I almost have never missed a day for years. And I don't ride it very hard and very far. Again, the middle way. Think of yourself if you're a swimmer and you live in the Mediterranean in the summer or in the tropics. You go out in the ocean every day. How far should you swim from the shore on a calm day? Until your body is warm, and then you turn around and come back. That's how far. Well, I do the same with a bicycle. I go in my neighborhood on a flat street for about 20 minutes. Now, I could do it on on a bicycle in a house. I don't like bicycles in houses, and I don't like exercise machines in houses. I can't stand them. I like to go out. I like to smell the air. I like to look at birds. I like to look at people. So I take that 20-minute ride. It's mild. I realize I should do more. Sometimes I do, but I don't do it more. I do it maybe once or twice a day. And, okay, so that's another part of my particular regimen. I sleep a lot. I sleep an enormous amount, like a lion. In fact, after a show is over, I go to sleep if I can. If I am near a home studio or in it, I will go from the microphone to the bed and take a 20 to 30-minute nap, or I go totally asleep. I don't know where I am. I put on a sound machine, and I zonk out. Now, some would say, that's crazy. You should be running around the block to burn off that adrenaline. No, I should be sleeping. That's how I burn off the anxiety. So sleep is missing in the regimen of most people today. They're exhausted. They run themselves ragged. I nap. I've napped for the last almost all of my life. I've always been a napper. Do you know that? Again, why? Because, A, I found that it works. Number two, it's a Mediterranean. You talk about the Mediterranean diet. Whatever happened to the siesta that used to be so popular in Mediterranean countries? The Italians would close their businesses, at 12 o'clock, and open them at 5. They would eat their dinners at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Whatever happened to that? So that's gone, this leisure, the sense of leisure, the napping, very important. What else did I mention? Spirituality, faith in God, faith in a higher power, faith in the fact that the world didn't begin with you and the world won't end with you, and that you have to pray when things go wrong, and you have to ask God to help you. Right, missing. So one last thing without getting too wrapped up in this. So I felt the cold coming on from that horrible dinner on Sunday night, from being exposed to the cold without expecting it, being around the bums in the street. I got a little cold. Normally I'm in great shape, thank God. So what did I do? I escalated my vitamin A intake. Missing link in all nutritional regimens is vitamin A. Most people take a lot of vitamin C because of the pollen years. They don't understand that they're missing vitamin A, whether it be through a high amount of cod liver oil, which is incredibly important, which I grew up on, incidentally. I just take vitamin A, and when I don't feel good, I'll take 100,000 or 125,000 units. And I know it's lipid soluble. I also know it can be toxic at a higher level. It's not water soluble like vitamin C. So I'm very cautious with it. But vitamin A usually kicks any cold away. And then I eat some meat with a lot of spices in it. Like last night, I cooked a meal. I could go on now for 20 more minutes of what I cooked last night because I was feeling down. But I must say, I started with 2 scotches, 15-year-old scotch that I like, and I don't drink it very often because it keeps me sleepy in the morning, very dopey. It was wonderful. The scotch calmed me down, finished the beer off with dinner, and then I watched some bad television. I watched that Ozark. I just want to get it over with. I can't wait till it's over already with the white trash accents. It's enough already. I can't wait till it ends. But anyway, I have only one more segment to go, thank God. One more episode. Thank God it's over. I hope they don't do season 3. Season 3 in these episodic thrillers on TV is like hour 3 in radio. Hour 1 is terrific. The second hour is a repeat. The third hour, you could die from it. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Take 1 atom of nitrogen and bond it with 1 atom of oxygen. Boom, you just created nitric oxide, a miracle molecule your own body makes that fuels your cardiovascular health, keeping you vibrant. But as we all age, our bodies need help generating more natural nitric oxide. Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets and created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. The core philosophy of Human is to develop heart-healthy products for your body. 1 teaspoon of Super Beets daily tends to support your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels, giving you natural energy without the need of a quick caffeine kick or sugar high. We're talking real, healthful, natural energy. So call 800-481-0504 or go to SavageLovesBeets.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets and free shipping with your first purchase. I want you to feel the 1 + 1 = boom effect of Super Beets. Just call 800-481-0504. You're talking about stress today, so I can't stress enough how bad the home security industry has become. Broken. We call it the legacy companies, the old style, right? They're locked in the 80s. They lock you into 3-year contracts. They hit you with hidden fees. Bad technology. And I'm going to recommend a way to do it, which is Simply Safe Home Security. They're very different. They got it right. See, the company was started 10 years ago with a mission to fix the industry. They got rid of contracts, middlemen, and, well, sales guys. And they made it easy to set up your system with no hard wiring or tools. You can do it yourself. You're going to get professionally monitored 24/7 protection for just $15 a month. You get protected by police dispatch, fire dispatch. Everyone loves Simply Safe. And Simply Safe now protects over 2 million people. They've won Editor's Choice Awards from CNET, PC Mag, and Wirecutter. Please go to simplysafesavage.com. You go to simplysafesavage.com to order your Simply Safe system, and you'll get a 60-day risk-free trial. That's simplysafesavage.com to protect your home and family today. Simplysafesavage.com. It's a special website for your safety. So the hour's almost gone. I can't believe we're down to a minute left. Look what happens when shows are good. And when the host is good, the show flies so fast he can't even keep up with it. What was I talking about? Health and fitness. Are you miserable? Who do you trust more, the media or Donald Trump? And I found out that people, by a Gallup study around the world, are more miserable today than ever. Why are you miserable? And we talked about having Maxine Waters removed from Congress for inciting riots. She's violating that first clause of the First Amendment, in my estimation, by yelling fire in a crowded theater. She's actually inciting people to go out and hurt others. And if I'll play her sound, and I'll let the sound of Maxine Waters speak for itself, and the kind of violence it is producing in this country, and how the newspapers and the TV stations are complicit in this violence against Republicans and conservatives and Trump supporters. What they have not yet seen is the counter-reaction, which will not be pretty at all.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Here I am. Welcome back to The Savage Nation. Look, if I were a normal person, I probably would have stayed in bed today and done nothing. I was an average person. Yeah, I realize there are people who stay in bed and they're healthy. They don't even get up every day. They get up, they go to the bathroom, they have a lunch, they listen to talk radio, watch some TV, then they go out to dinner. And that's their life. Now, I'm not ready for that yet. That's like the funny farm. But we are. So I get up this morning and I see 2 articles that attract me. People are more miserable than at any other point on record. And I looked at Mark Wahlberg's daily regimen. Guy's 48, he's in great shape, but he lives like a zealot. I could never live that way, especially, I admire him because he has all those kids. He's a great family man. He eats dinner with them. Grueling daily regimen. Up at 2:30 in the morning, the prayer for 30 minutes, cryotherapy. And apparently athletes are using cryotherapy, using liquid nitrogen to plunge the air to temps below 100 degrees centigrade, minus 100 degrees centigrade, to alleviate muscle and joint pain. Well, I have a few words about extremism like that. And it's quite, I know the Swedes used to go into a hot sauna and then run in the snow. A lot of good it did them. They gave up their nation as a result of that stupidity. The Swedes, they run in the snow. Meanwhile, the Islamists took over their country. The women are being raped in the streets and they don't do anything about it, but they're very good at health techniques in Sweden. But, I think the opposite works on reducing inflammation. I like a hot shower in the morning. Why must it be a cold shower? For example, I remember when I was broadcasting from a radio station, I used to want a shower before my show. 5 minutes before a show, I craved the hot shower on my head. I like inflammation. I find that inflammation works for my... I want you to think about this carefully. Think about it. What is it that helps you think clearly? Well, circulation. You need to get blood flowing into your brain, right? Now, why would plunging yourself into a cold cryotherapy tank bring more blood to your brain? I think it would like shrivel you up. So what's the theory on this? The cold is good for you? Why isn't hot good for you? I like a hot shower on my head before a show. I like to feel the hot on my head. So I work out at home and I take a hot shower before a show. It always makes me feel better. I think it increases inflammation and I think better. But now the current theory is that you have to reduce inflammation. Everything's anti-inflammatory this, anti-inflammatory that. It's like they discovered aspirin. They discovered willow bark suddenly. The whole generation, every other month they come up with a new theory. Remember a year ago was eating raw foods? They gave you some theory. They never went past the 7th grade in science, but they told you why you ate raw foods. Why? They would mutter something about enzymes. They didn't even know what an enzyme was. You know, the girls who would shoot heroin at night in L.A. and sleep with a sorority of people. But they were experts on health. They were vegan, and they all had lectures for you on health. They don't know what they're talking about. People are groping. They've lost their center. They don't know north from south, from east from west. And as a result of that, anything goes. So actually, what is the right way? Well, everyone has to work it out for themselves. However, I do believe that there are certain principles that we can all follow for a healthy life. And I've given you them in hour 1. But now this gets us to the hour 2 thing. Oh, and I challenged you, by the way, those of you. I said, since I've been into this health world for a long time, if you call the show with titles of my health books that you have read or own from years back, you will win a brand new copy of Stop Mass Hysteria, which is my political health title, out in just 2 weeks from now. So I should take some calls. I should do that. But I want to get into the whole thing of why are you miserable? It says the negative experience index score for Americans is higher than the average around the world, more stressed out than people in any other country except one, Greece. 49% of Americans say they were stressed a lot of the previous day compared to 37% of average across the world. In Greece, that number was 66%. Greeks have always been miserable since Plato. Miserable, just a miserable place. I don't exactly know. I jokingly said because since Aristotle came up with Aristotelian logic, and so you have to think logically, maybe that makes them stressed out. I don't exactly know the reason. But in America, people say they're stressed out about the future of our nation, money, work, political anxieties, things like that. I say it's because they're missing faith in prayer and also because the media has become so negative about everything and they provoke fear on such a daily basis that people are having nervous breakdowns from it. And that's about it. I could never lead the Mark Wahlberg regimen, the daily regimen. 2:30 in the morning, he gets up. He has a half an hour of prayer. It's like living like a monk. Workout, 95-minute workout at 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning, I'm having deep nightmares. At 3:15 a.m., I'm usually having my worst nightmares. And I'll tell you something. I'm going to tell you something funny. When I lived in the Fiji Islands, when I go there collecting plants, and some nights I spend in the villages, and I'm talking 1969, 1970, before there was television, even electricity in these villages, sometimes I'd have bad nightmares, and I'd wake up in the morning, I'd say to my friend Domenico, I dreamed about this, I dreamed about that. He would smile at me, his Fijian friend, and he would say, oh, he said, we Fijians believe just the exact opposite will happen. He had such a cheerful view of everything. And you ask any therapist, bad dreams or nightmares can actually be helpful. It's like the garbage can of your day, of your life. Isn't it? Is there a psychotherapist in the audience who would agree with that? That you shouldn't suppress nightmares if you have them? I mean, you could sleep through bad dreams and bad nightmares. I mean, you're having them all the time and it's repetitive. That's another story, which I've had for about 50 years, the same nightmare almost over and over again. It's usually to do with the anxiety in college. I missed signing up for a class at Queens College in 1963. I got there too late. It was closed. It was full. You couldn't get in. I come in and ask where my score is, and they say you're not getting a grade this year. I've had dreams like this forever. That because I'm a highly driven individual who wants to succeed. So I always have a fear of failure somewhere deep down in me, you know. I have other stuff that comes up. But it's like a garbage can. Dreams are like a trash can of your mind. And so you can't suppress that. What are you going to take a pill to suppress a nightmare? It's your subconscious clearing itself. That's all. What's wrong with that? There's no perfect in the world. The first thing to remember is there's no perfect in the world. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Trump's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Do you understand that? Why is it that we seek perfection in a president or in ourselves while the schmucks in the media sit there pointing fingers at him, blaming a hurricane on him? And they think that they have no, they wonder why people hate them and have contempt for them and don't believe in them. But anyway, look, I've given you this great show so far. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's an example of what's coming in the future. I'm going to do a lot more away from politics. So remember what's going on now. They're fueling you about the midterms to panic you. Both sides of the aisle are, right? But what's going to happen after the election in November? We're going to keep fueling you with the same crap? We lost 30 seats. We lost 60 seats. This means this, means that, and do this and that. I got to do something different than radio. That's what my calling is to bring you the versatility of my background, my knowledge, my experience. And that's why I'm doing this today. I want to show you there's a bigger world out there in talk radio than bashing liberals or bashing Trump. You understand that? I mean, we're not at the midterms yet. It is going to be a fever pitch of insanity. Yesterday in the San Francisco area, a deranged liberal went with a knife and tried to stab a Republican. Fortunately, the guy was such a moron, his knife didn't open. And somewhere else, they burned a Republican headquarters down to the ground. And that's because of Maxine Waters, in my estimation, every day fanning the flames of hatred and laughing about it. And no one will say a word for fear of her. Well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, even if your name is Maxine Waters. There should be a censure motion in Congress right now to get that woman out of Congress. She will destroy this nation by fanning the maniacs. Now, if you think I'm making this up, I think I'm obliged, before I go back to the health and stress topic, I want you to listen to this maniac, Maxine Waters, fanning the flames of hatred. Listen to 01.
There are those who said that we lacked civility when I got up and talked about the president's cabinet, and I said, if you see him anywhere, if you see him at a restaurant, if you see him in a department store, even at a gasoline station, just tell him you're not welcome here anywhere. And so it frightened a lot of people. And of course, the lying president said that I had threatened all of his constituents. I did not threaten his constituents, his supporters. I do that all the time, but I didn't do it that time.
Censure her, throw her out. She doesn't belong in Congress. She's an uncivil dolt, and she is dangerous for the health of the nation. You know, my book, Stop Mass Hysteria, is so on target. America's Insanity from the Salem witch trials to the Trump witch hunt. It'll be out in just a few short weeks. If Maxine Waters is not fanning and is not an example of the mass hysteria of our times, can you explain what is? Now, I'm going to hold my fire on the book for another week or so before I really get into reading it. I don't even have a copy, the first finished copy. I'm waiting on it. Maxine Waters is fanning mass hysteria. There are rules in Congress to censure people who do things like this. And yet the cowardly Republicans refuse to act. We have to act to stop the mass hysteria, for example, of Maxine Waters. That's one example. But today I want to talk about health and fitness, the Misery Index, what books of mine, my health books that you may have and read. I really got to go on to the callers, by the way. So let me run through them quickly, and then we'll go back. Then we have an expert on the cryo chamber thing. And you couldn't believe it's how fast everything goes. Lance, KSFO, line 2, what's on your mind?
Yes, of course, there's Healing Children Naturally, but I also have a copy of your Maximum Immunity, and in the context of the day, I would suggest you should do one more political book, and you should title it Maxine Immunity.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I think Maxine has immunity. Maxine has immunity. Everyone's afraid of her because they're afraid she'll use a certain card to protect herself. The minute someone comes after her, she'll scream race in a crowded nation. You know that.
Well,
That's why they won't touch her. But I don't care what your race is. If you're fanning the flames of hatred and hysteria, she is doing, throw her out of Congress.
be vaccinated against Maxine.
Well, I am. I'm vaccinating her by playing her own words and letting the people decide if this is the kind of rhetoric they want. Because if they keep it up, they're going to get the reaction they can never believe. You know, there's an adage in the Bible, and I want to get it exactly right. He who courts the wind shall reap the whirlwind. She is courting the wind, and she will reap the whirlwind if she keeps this up. And the same is true for that Scarborough piece of trash. He thinks he can say anything about the president and about voters for Trump. He is courting the wind, and he shall reap the whirlwind. What goes around comes around. It's not limited to one side. The problem is that we conservatives are generally more polite. We're not violent people until provoked, and then we're very violent. They better stop provoking us. I am terrified of the counter-reaction that's coming in this country from this insanity, this hysteria that the left is whipping up. That the MSNBCers, the CNNers, the major media, the whipping and the whipping and the whipping and the frenzy and the poking and the poking and the poking. There's going to be a reaction to this. And it's not just going to be Republicans getting stabbed and Republicans having their campaign headquarters burned down. They have to be stopped because they can't stop themselves. They're insane. There are rules against this. The problem is we don't have a Republican Party to act for us. They're tepid, they're cowards, they're middle-of-the-roaders. That is the problem. That is the problem unto itself. But I want to go back to the callers the minute I return about health and fitness on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Back to the Savage Nation. Florence. Do you feel Florence or Maxine more? What will do more damage to America? Hurricane Florence or Maxine Waters' mouth? Yesterday, as I said, a Republican, someone tried to stab him. Switchblade didn't open, and campaign headquarters was burned up in Oregon. You think that's not related to the big mouth of these leftists who are constantly inciting riots in this country? I do. That's my opinion. Don't call me, hurricane. Heading the Carolinas like it never happened before. Now they're blaming, I swear to God, the Post, the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, the Amazon Post, they're blaming Trump for the hurricane. Then the chief of 60 Minutes was thrown out for looking at a woman or brushing against her 30 years ago. 36 years he ran 60 Minutes. 36 years. And they looked into it. It's something about, I don't know what he did. Something happened. They were asking people who fired him, what did he actually do? What policy did Mr. Fager violate? And they wouldn't say. Meanwhile, in New York, run by that slimeball, Ronan Farrow, the daughter of Woody Allen's girlfriend, whatever. I don't know who he is. Ronan Farrow specializes in destroying people. He's got no life of his own, so his whole life is built around destroying men's lives. That's the kind. Imagine living like that as a destroyer of lives. So Ronan Farrow writes a story in the New Yorker about a new claim of misconduct level at the executive at 60 Minutes. In this line, Sarah Johansson, a producer who was an intern at CBS in the late aughts, said that he groped her at a work party. That was the end of a 36-year career. She said that he groped her at a work party. There was no proof that he groped her at a work party. Some intern at a work party says the guy who runs the company groped her 40 years ago and they fire him? Is this the kind of nation you want to live in? Because I don't. And I'm sick of it. And I'd like to see the people who are falsely accused fight back and sue the people who are accusing them and take them for every dime they're worth and make them produce the proof or put them in the poorhouse and put an end to this witch hunt. That's what mass hysteria is as well.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. We're talking about how does your health regimen compare to Mark Wahlberg and why are you miserable and stuff like that. And I've given you a list of the health books I've written, some of them over the many years, and what my current health regimen is. And we have with us an expert on cryonics. Josh Brown, welcome to the Savage Nation. You own a company called CryoNation?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
So CryoNation is a health and wellness center. We're based around cryotherapy, obviously. That's our main service. And the primary purpose of cryo is to minimize inflammation, which I tell people translates from Greek as fire. That's the literal translation. Cryo, the translation from Greek, is cold.
But where is the scientific evidence that cold reduces inflammation?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's been a lot of journal-published studies done. As you probably know, athletes have been doing ice baths for quite some time.
Right. Of course, you injure your ankle or your shoulder, you get a bruise, you put an ice pack on it. So this is an extension of that thinking, is that it?
Yes, sir. And why it's so much more effective than ice is because ice, it's a wet cold. It's freezing your muscle tissue. It's restricting your blood flow. We don't want to restrict your blood flow. We want to increase it, and that's what cryo does.
Oh, wait a minute. If you want to reduce inflammation and increase blood flow, they're kind of opposite, because if you're increasing the blood flow, you're liable to also increase inflammation at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, so basically with cryo, we're only cooling your skin surface off. It's giving your body the illusion it's freezing. We're not actually freezing your muscle tissue, so this doesn't restrict your blood flow like getting it into an ice bath would. So you come out, and that's why you warm up instantaneously. There's no downtime. You could go get a massage, go straight to the gym, go on a long walk.
What is the risk of such an you're talking about minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, I don't know what the temperature is, in a liquid nitrogen bath. Wouldn't it be risky for someone who's older?
Well, I mean, as long as you're following protocol, we have even my 90-something-year-old grandparents getting in the cryo chamber. So as long as it's under the right supervision, we can adjust the intensity to really acclimate. We have everywhere from 7, 8-year-old gymnasts to professional Olympic athletes to, again, my 90-something-year-old grandparents. So we can it can go from cryo range starts at negative 166 Fahrenheit. That's considered the start of cryo range. We can get it down to negative 300 degrees. So depending on the person, their tolerance, how big they are, someone who has more body fat can kind of absorb more cold in a manner of speaking. They kind of have a little more insulation. So we can adjust it to really accommodate anybody.
Well, is there no risk now? This is a risk-free technique? I don't believe that.
So there's contraindications. So if you have a heart attack or a stroke or you've had a pacemaker, we have had customers with that go through cryo. I tell them, consult with your doctor first, get the green light. But it's essentially just using ice, just the easier way of doing it. So you don't want to breathe in nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas, 78% of the air we're breathing in now is nitrogen, but there's no oxygen in it. So we're trying to avoid people breathing in nitrogen gas because you could get a headache. If you keep breathing it in, you could pass out. So it's a very easy thing to avoid from happening. So that's kind of where we separate ourselves from the other cryo places. We're the busiest ones in the U.S. We kind of get you colder, but we can, again, adjust the intensity.
Well, when did I'm going to call this a health fad from my perspective. When did this begin? Who triggered this cryonics thing?
It started in Japan in the 1970s. It's a doctor, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was back in the 1970s, made its way to Europe, and from there, it's part of the healthcare coverage in several different European countries. It's made its way to the U.S. about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's become a lot more mainstream here in the last year or two, especially.
All right, so I remember when I was working for my doctorate at UC Berkeley in the mid-'70s, there was a company that was created over in Emeryville that froze bodies after death, and it was a cryonics company. You know anything about that, for example? It's not related to what you do, but are you at all familiar with cryonics?
Yes, sir. So they would use nitrogen gas just like we use. Now, it's, like Ted Williams, there was for a while he was in one of those chambers after his death, and I think his family ended up eventually getting him out of it. But the idea is to preserve the muscle tissue. Of course, just keeping it in we're only doing it for 3 minutes as opposed to in that posthumously, it's going to be, they're doing it 24/7. So they use tons of nitrogen gas, which there's a good expense for it. So
I think some of my former professors are still frozen in Emeryville.
Probably so. So maybe when the technology improves, maybe they can reincarnate them.
Well, I'll reserve comment on that one. Well, the theory is that you froze the body at death for a future time when man would find a cure to the illness or what ailment that killed you, and then that would be used and you'd come back to life. Wasn't that the theory on cryonics?
Yes, sir. That's a basic concept.
All right, so this is different. This is cryotherapy. Again, the word cryo comes from the Greek word what?
Cryo it is a Greek word, so it translates from Greek as cold, whereas, of course, inflammation translates from Greek as fire.
But what, I'm aware of the inflammation theory. I'm not 100% sure that inflammation is the cause of all diseases. This is sort of a current fad in medicine and alternative medicine. Everyone, they look at each other, inflammation, reduce inflammation. Foods reduce inflammation. Who says that inflammation is necessarily harmful, that all so-called inflammation is harmful?
Well, there's been, there is good inflammation. For example, after you work out, they've shown, your body kind of goes through a process where, there's inflammation that's occurring that's actually, it's a process that in turn helps the body heal itself. But they've shown that about 3 out of 4 Americans suffer from what they call silent inflammation, which is just, it's a byproduct of going through our daily routine and, just working out. And a lot of people, there's not anything out there for everybody, but we've had tons of people, knee issues, joint pain, arthritis, tendonitis, really sciatic issues, back pain, headaches, migraines. We have a localized cryo where we can hone in on specific areas as well. So
this is now the cure-all for everything. It looks like cryotherapy is going to be the next phase of medicine. But, I want to go back to inflammation for 1 minute. For example, it's well known in medicine that if a person has a fever, it's better to let the fever run its course than to stop the fever because the fever will burn out the pathogen. And that's something that should be considered in this anti-inflammatory hysteria, I think, that's running through the whole alternative medical world. That would be a caution that I would suggest, because sometimes inflammation can be helpful in the healing process, as I just said. Malaria, for example, it's all based upon inflammation and high fever. And I'm not saying a person wants to get malaria, but that there's records of diseases being cured from very high fevers, which is not to say that what you're doing is fraudulent or wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of validity. I myself wouldn't try it because I would be afraid that at my stage of life, which I don't particularly like cold very much. I don't like hot very much. I avoid the extremes. I wouldn't subject myself to an extreme like that because I'd be afraid my body might react negatively.
Mm-hmm. And that's totally understandably. Almost everyone going through their first session is at least a little bit nervous. But that's where we can really adjust the intensity for everyone. And my 90-something-year-old grandmother, she's about to turn 90 this year. She's at the end of her session a lot of times. Is that it? So most people are amazed at how easy it is because, again, it's all an artificial cold. And to your point of increasing the body temperature being beneficial, it definitely is. I do cryo about 6 times a week. I do the sauna just about every single day as well. And when I'm not feeling well, I love going in the sauna. And germs, bacteria, viruses, like you said, they do thrive at that 98-degree temperature. And when we get sick, like you said, a natural response is for our body temperature to naturally to increase, and that helps kill off the germs, bacteria, and viruses because they.
Right. That's all I'm saying. There should be some cautionary thinking in these extreme treatments such as cryotherapy, because people may be overusing them, just as they overused vegan diets, just as they overuse and overbelieve in certain therapies. I think there's got to be some middle ground here, but I appreciate your coming on the Savage Nation and teaching us about this emerging field that you're an expert in, and your company is called. How many stores do you have or operations in Cryo Nation?
So right now we're just in DFW. We have our one location. We're opening up satellite centers right now, and our goal is in the next 2 to 3 years to have about 30 to 40 of these opened up just throughout DFW. And we have a lot of...
What's VFW?
Dallas-Fort Worth, excuse me. Dallas-Fort Worth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. No, I missed that one. Because I'm in SFO, so I don't know anything else. Yeah, look, Josh, I wish you the best. I guarantee you're going to be a very wealthy man one day with this. And I hope that people benefit from it and they go in with their eyes open as to the possible negative effects. For myself, maybe I should take a sauna and run in the snow the next time I visit Sweden, which is likely never to happen. But thank you very much for being with us on the Savage Nation. Well, I thought that was very good. I thought that was a very interesting insight. He's a good-natured young man. He didn't take umbrage at my questions, which were not meant to trip him up or antagonize him. They were meant to provoke thought, which is what a good interview should be. I wasn't here to go, ha-ha, gotcha. Okay? I'm not on MSNBC. Hey, gotcha. That's the news media today. The vermin. Everyone tries to trip everyone else up. That's not the object of an interview. It's to get to the truth some way. But there we are. So you just learned something you didn't know before about cryotherapy. This is Michael Savage, author of Stop Mass Hysteria.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand the business, to go on vacation, to buy a new car, remember? But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very, very risky. Listen, according to The Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper I just read, it made my hair stand on end. You better be careful when you go to the bank. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you and I for the government. And then they report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. What does that mean? Get The Secret War on Cash now by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? You heard me. You better read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 800-289-2646. The new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading The Secret War on Cash. It's free if you call 800-289. A product called Super Beats for a good reason, because it works. And I'm going to just give you the close right now. I want you to write this down, 800-481-0504, or go to SavageLovesBeats.com, and then you're going to find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beats and free shipping with your first purchase. And the reason is that Super Beats by Human was harnessed for one reason. It's the power of the nutrient-enriched beets that creates a superfood which helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. And 1 teaspoonful of Super Beets every day supports your cardiovascular health and blood pressure, giving you natural energy with no caffeine kick or sugar high. And it's real, healthy, natural energy. Joe from Austin says Super Beets has helped me stick to my goals of watching what I eat and getting more exercise. I take Super Beets before I work out, and it's a big help with stamina. So again, call 800-481-0504, or please go to SavageLovesBeats.com today. Well, for they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. It hath no stalk, the bud shall yield no meal. If so be it yield, the strangers shall swallow it up. Why am I reading for they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind? Because Maxine Waters, Joe Scarborough, and all of the left-wing agitators are sowing the winds of hatred. And right now they think that they're winning because Republicans are being shot, stabbed, their centers are being burned down, and they think that they have nothing to do with it and they're above the law. But they should understand that this is a nation of laws, and they will reap the whirlwind as sure as I am sitting here. And it won't be from me. What goes around comes around, all you loudmouths on the left who think you can joke about burning things down and stabbing people and punching them, and you think it's not going to come back to you when the right-wingers go nuts, and they will go nuts. They will go crazy. And you don't want to see this nation when the right wing goes crazy. Do I have to spell out for you what will happen to this nation, all you snotty people in your television studios? All you loudmouth Congress people who think that you're above the law and you can just say, go attack people, ha, ha, ha. Watch it. Watch it. You're breaking the law. You're yelling fire in a crowded theater. The times are very incendiary. Just shut your mouths and calm down because there are laws. And I'll tell you something else. Donald Trump, as a president, has the power to get to you for what you are doing. He will get to you through the law. He has warned you already to stop it. And if you think he's powerless, keep pushing him. If you think that he's a buffoon and a dunce, and everything you say about him because your girlfriend agrees with you and your other pothead friends agree with you, I got another guest coming for you. You have seen nothing yet. I say pull your horns in. Pull your horns in real fast. Just watch what you say. When you saw a man pull out a switchblade knife just the other day in San Francisco and try to stab a person running for office, a Republican, you thought that was funny, didn't you? What'd you say? He got what he deserved? Is that what you secretly said? Joe Scarborough, did you say he got what he deserved? To your girlfriend there, Mika, whatever her name is? Oh, you didn't say that? What did you say, Joe? Or when they burned down the campaign headquarters up there, what'd you laugh and they said they got what they deserved, Joe? The day will come that there will be a payment for this delivery. The day is not yet here, but it will be here. I can guarantee you it will be here. And in times of mass hysteria and the insanity of the media that's fueling it, the insanity of the Congress people who are constantly harping on things that we know are fake, such as Russia collusion. When they found there was no Russia collusion, what did Mueller switch to? He switched to something else. He went way past his original investigation and his mandate. He should have been fired a long time ago. Trump should still fire him. I don't care what they would say in the media. They hate Trump anyway. What's the difference what they're going to say? What are you worried about what a few idiots in the media are going to say? It's over already. The original mandate was Russia collusion. Did they find any? No. So why then do you as an American want an endless Stalinist-like inquisition about people? Why do you want it? Because right now it's on the other side of the aisle? Watch out, what goes around comes around. Because tomorrow it could be you being investigated through an open-ended investigation. And that's what I mean when I say stop mass hysteria. America's insanity from the Salem witch trials to the Trump witch hunt. You don't have to love everything Donald Trump does. You don't even have to like his style. Understand, though, that this is a nation of laws, not a nation of madmen in the media who think that they have with impunity, can say anything about anybody and that there are no consequences. He who seeks the whirlwind, he who seeks the wind, shall reap the whirlwind. And that means people who put on pancake makeup every day in front of a mirror in a green room. They are not above the law. They shall reap the whirlwind.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Here we go on The Savage Nation. We've been talking about who do you trust more for the truth, the media or Donald Trump? Well, I guess with my audience, we know the answer to that one. But it's not 100%, by the way. Remember the adage, question authority. That's my adage. It ought to be yours. No worship here. Thank you. And the hurricane. I guess Trump is responsible for this dangerous hurricane. I don't know how, but that's what the Washington Post says. So if the Washington Post says that Trump caused this hurricane, I guess it's true. Just ask Jeff Bezos' workers what truth is, okay? Other topics have been really weird, actually. Weird topics, such as Trump could win in Syria by staying out, says Pat Buchanan. Wow, is he right? And sure am I right. And the most important political book of these times has been written. It's called Stop Mass Hysteria. And I suggest you go to Amazon right now and order your copy and get your first printing, first edition while you still can. The most important political book of these times, Stop Mass Hysteria. It explains all the violence, who is behind it, and what we must do to stop it. You know, these are very interesting topics to me today on the show. One is this thing about who do you trust more, the media or Trump? And, I put it on Twitter. And what I have here is a lot of people who worship Donald Trump. Very dangerous. You should not worship anyone, especially a politician. That's number one. I take that for the way I'm saying it. Don't worship anyone. He's only a man, for God's sakes. And you see people, they make him into a godlike figure. Now, on the other side, you got people who are idiotic, who turn him into a demon, like Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi. Those on the left who are just as stupid, more stupid, as a matter of fact, to blame even a hurricane on him. That's how crazy they are. So, it's very hard to keep your head while all those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, but I try to do that every day. So I'm talking about this topic of health and fitness, which I've been involved with since the early, 70s, when my first published book was Earth Medicine, Earth Food. And that book was in print for over 20 years in many, many, many languages. It's beautiful to see that book in German, in Swedish, in Danish. And so I've written many health books as an educator is what it was. I'm not claiming to be Linus Pauling. I was an educator. I took the best knowledge from the best people and combined it in a populist way so that people could understand it and apply it to their lives. And many of the things that you are doing today, I was writing about 30 years ago. I wrote a book called Reducing the Risk of Alzheimer's, because for several years I was involved in Alzheimer's research. And I put together a small institute called the Alzheimer's Research Institute. But because I was an independent scientist, it was extremely hard to get any funding. Either you went through government agencies, and they were not funding anything to do with preventing the amyloid plaques, to do with diet, nutrition, or aluminum. I had to go to private sources to get the money, and I couldn't keep it going and keep a family going. But what I'm saying is I've been in this health world a very long time. And believe me, I have a lot of wisdom to offer the world today, both in health and politics. They are interconnected. Okay, I'm going to tell you some things today that you're going to find interesting. But I'm going to run a little contest. Since I was pretty famous as a health writer, actually I was a health guru for many years before I went into talk radio, and I love the field, and I did it to save myself because of the genetics in my family. I'm not blaming anyone. I thought I'd be dead by 30. And so far, I'm still here. So I was on the most restricted diets you can imagine. I discovered the Osawa Zen macrobiotic diet when I was 18 years old because I had killer migraines since I was a little boy, and nothing could cure them. And I went on the right diet by a process of elimination. I got rid of my migraines. And when I found out I could control something to do with my health, as severe as a migraine, by eliminating sugar, sucrose, I was amazed. And then I started to introduce things and change and this and that. So here I am many years later. I've written health books. So here's the contest. Anyone listening to the Savage Nation today who can tell me what health books I have written, which you have read or you still own in your library, you're going to win a prize, a brand new copy of Stop Mass Hysteria out in 2 weeks from today. Because I've written a lot of health books before I became a talk show host. And in many ways, it's the same mission. My mission as a health writer was to improve the health of the American people and those who read my books or read my books, just as I'm still trying to improve the mental health of America by using analytical techniques to show you to think for yourself and always question authority. Always question authority. That used to be an adage of liberalism, question authority. Unfortunately, today liberals do not question their authorities. They worship their authorities. They're kind of involved in their whole authorities. And sadly, and the truth is, on the other side, people don't question our authorities enough either. And if we get dragged into a war against Russia through Trump's mistake of bombing Idlib, then it means that you're no better than the liberals who follow blindly as well. Okay? But I touched on that yesterday. And I feel like a new year has begun. You know, for me, forget religions. Like every year, it's September. When I go back to school, it was like a new year began. To me, January never meant the new year. It was always September when I had to get away for vacation. So it's always a new year, a new beginning for me. So in the new beginning of talk radio for you, maybe every once in a while, I'm going to do a little word stuff. Can you figure out which of the following words that I'm about to read? Well, you tell me in your own mind the minute I read it to you. I'm not going to quiz you. You will. I'm going to read you 14 words. Tell me if you know which word is the opposite in meaning to the word I'm about to read. I'm giving you a little English lesson. So the first word is, and I'm going to read you the word. See if you can tell me the opposite to that word. Gluttonish. What's the opposite of a gluttonous person? Abstemious. What's the opposite of real in actual existence? Number 3, an object of hatred. What's the object of hatred? The opposite of an object of hatred. What is the opposite of someone who is politically direct and honest? That would be Machiavellian. That would be the opposite. What is the opposite over the words control over the mob so that it is without power? What is the opposite of completely ignorant, knowing nothing? The opposite would be omniscient. What is the opposite of an idol? Someone loved by all. What is the opposite of an idol? Like, he's an idol or she's an idol. The opposite would be pariah, right? What is the opposite of someone who is indecisive or wavering? Peremptory. What is the opposite of leaving the emotions unaffected? Poignant. What is the opposite of someone who is satisfied or uncomplaining? That would be a querulous person. What is the opposite of someone who you say is authentic and true in every way? That would be a specious person. What about something that is found nowhere, completely absent? You can't find it anywhere. The opposite would be ubiquitous. So if I said that silica is ubiquitous in the sidewalks of New York, that would be an example of ubiquitous. What if I say that that person is crude and boorish? The opposite is unctuous. And finally, what's the opposite of someone who is modest? Vainglorious, right? Then I'm trying to show you words. It's complicated. The English language is a great language, but you have to study it. I can't imagine how hard it is for a foreigner to learn this language. It's very difficult. Most of us don't even speak English, especially with the advent of the social media. It's gone below that of a 6th or 5th grader in my day as a student, maybe below that of a 4th grader. How many words of English do you think the average person on Instagram and Facebook actually needs, or Twitter? What age level? What grade level? What IQ level? What IQ level do you think is functionally necessary to be on Twitter? An 80? Someone out of a mental asylum could go on Twitter and tweet, "Feel good today." That's all. That's all you need. You're a genius. Just show your bikini. All right. Anyway, that was my little lesson now. What's up? What else do I have? Oh, there's a funny thing about radio you don't understand that I learned over the years, which is that it doesn't mean like how many callers you get don't reflect on whether the people are enjoying the show. A lot of you become captivated by me like I'm a snake charmer. When you hear that I'm what's the word? Ebullient, and you feel my voice is bubbly and I'm excited like I am today, you'll basically sit back and listen. You won't call, right? But if I want to pump you to call, all I have to do is say certain key words like MAGA or liberals bad or wall, build that wall, or lock her up. I could get you to call if I wanted, with questions based upon the key words that trigger you. But I'm not Bill Maher. Or the schmuck on Morning Joe. What an idiot he is. These people are so low, they do anything for ratings. Don't they realize how stupid they sound? Did they really care? When I wrote Stop Mass Hysteria, and I said America's insanity from the Salem witch trials to the Trump witch hunt, which will be out in 2 weeks from today or 2 weeks from Tuesday or so, I do mention some of these Joe Palookas in the media. They're whipping up the mass hysteria in this country. And there ought to be a law against it. I think there should be a law. The problem is who's going to determine who in the media is whipping up the mass hysteria. It'll be determined by who's in office, right? Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's why we have no censorship. That's why the genius founding fathers gave us the First Amendment, to make sure that there was no censorship. So the problem is when you give people like Zuckerberg more power than they're entitled to, and they become a public utility, but they're not regulated as such, they then become censors worse than a government would be able to become. There's no FCC controlling them. It should be. See, if you're not going to make them a government entity, a public utility, there'd be something equivalent of the Federal Communications Commission, Social Communications Commission, SCC. Okay, I want to be the head of the SCC. And I want to tell Zuckerberg and the others what they can and cannot do to censor conservatives. I think there should be a Social Communications Commission. I'm not going to ask you should there be. There should be. I read that there's a misery index, and people are more miserable than ever today, which I found to be interesting in a strange way. People are more miserable today than ever in history. Well, I can't say in history. I would say that during the Holocaust or the plague, people might have been more miserable. But someone did a thing on misery. They do a misery index. It's an interesting topic, right? Turns out that the United States, we, are more miserable than anyone on earth except Greeks. Now, I understand why Greeks are miserable. Greeks are most miserable people on the planet. And that's because ever since Plato came along and introduced logic, they've been miserable because they had to live with logic and reason. Look what it's done to them. They're now the most miserable people on the planet. I mean, if you want to be happy, have no reason and no logic and just vote for a Democrat. And listen to, who do you fear more, Florence or Maxine Waters? I think Maxine Waters is more dangerous than Hurricane Florence to the safety of the United States of America, that is. You know what just happened, right? Guy pulled out a switchblade, tried to stab a Republican in California. That got buried by the local newspaper. Another one burned a Republican campaign headquarters. That got buried by the vermin in the media. And it's all being triggered by people like Maxine Waters, in my opinion. That's why I don't want to talk about him. Because if I was in Congress, I would not stop filibustering until Maxine Waters was censored for provoking violence amongst the morons who believe in her. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Have you ever taken your car in for an oil change, your mechanic finds something wrong, and bingo, surprise, you're hit with a huge repair bill? And what happens when you're not covered by the manufacturer's warranty? You're paying out of your own pocket to fix it, that's what. That's why I recommend extended vehicle protection from CarShield. If your car has 5,000 to 150,000 miles, CarShield can save you from paying for high repair bills. Replacing your engine or even a simple sensor can cost thousands. But when you're protected by CarShield, you can have your favorite mechanic or dealership fix your car. It's your choice. CarShield also provides 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. Get covered by the ultimate in extended vehicle protection. Get CarShield. How? Call 800-CAR-6100. 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 Mention code SAVAGE or visit carshield.com. Use code SAVAGE to save a big 10%. That's carshield.com or 800-CAR-6100. Code SAVAGE. Summer is gone, but not the sunspots, inflamed patches, and UV damage to your face, neck, and shoulders. I'd like to introduce Genucel's brand new sunspot corrector during Chamonix's summer repair sale for a limited time. Roseanne from Akron says, "Oh, in just days I saw a lightening of dark spots on my cheeks. I'm ordering more now." I gave my friend some of this to try, and boy, did they like it. It was a real test, and this guy really liked it. Yes, he's a guy. And just like Roseanne, if you click or call right now, you'll get the Genucel Sunspot Corrector absolutely free just for trying Genucel for bags and puffiness today. Finally, see those stubborn sunspots vanish, even the ones you had for years, and those bags and puffiness gone. And for results in less than 12 hours, the Genucel Immediate Effects is also free. Please go to Genucel.com now or call 800-SKIN-891, 800-SKIN-891, and listen, for a limited time, Chamonix's microdermabrasion is also yours free for the first time this year. You heard me now. Order now. Shipping is also free. So say goodbye to wrinkles, dark spots, and sunspots today. Please go to Genucel.com now. I'm Michael Savage, and you're listening to Talk 1300 at 98.7. We're talking about, we started with Mark Wahlberg's zealous physical regimen, getting up to 30, all that. And then I told you I was a zealot when I was in my 30s. I run up mountains. I wrote for Runner's Magazine. I wouldn't touch a piece of meat. And things changed as I went into radio. I needed the energy to do a daily show. It's much different than almost any other form of entertainment or activity because your mind has to be sharp for hours a day. You can't miss a word. I mean, if you're an actor, you can take breaks. You're reading a script. You don't really have to think that much, except how to look or how to do the part, I guess. But that's not as heavy a thought as trying to analyze topics and then handle callers. So I needed to fuel my brain. And my brain needs a lot of protein, especially animal protein. So I was talking about that. Then I'm talking about the misery index. A new article came out, says a lot of people are miserable these days. And it was a big study by Gallup, 154,000 people in more than 145 countries released today the so-called Negative Experience Index. It's an average of people's reports of their daily levels of worry, stress, physical pain, sadness, and anger. Highest level since Gallup began measuring the data 10 years ago. And the U.S. is really high up there, higher than the average around the world, because we work harder than anywhere else, except for Greece, which is higher. The Greeks also, they were stressed a lot more. Very, very high. And I jokingly said, because the Greeks have been nervous and stressed since Aristotle, who gave them a logic. And since they've been logical, they've been miserable. If you're not logical and you're stupid, you don't worry too much. Your stress is low. You're probably in low physical pain if you're a dummy. You're not sad or angry if you're a dumbbell. So I was asking myself, you, the people, what do you think is missing? Worry, stress, physical pain, sadness, anger. Why is it so high in America? Well, they came up with a reason. And the reason is political anxieties, money and work are big stresses in America's lives. People worry about the political climate of the country. They worry about work. And 59% believe that this is the lowest point in our nation's history that they can remember, which is absolutely crazy. This is because of the psychopaths in the media like those who run CNN and MSNBC, who continually foment hatred and discontent in the country, while we have the most booming economy in modern memory. We're at peace, not at war. There are no riots other than those caused by Maxine Waters and those kind of incendiary individuals who thrive on hatred and demagoguery. Country's at peace. Economy is booming. Everyone who wants to work is working. There's no hunger. And yet people are miserable because idiots in the media keep fomenting their discontent, which is a very dangerous thing for society. And as you know, yesterday, a man tried to stab a Republican in the Bay Area of San Francisco, but his switchblade didn't work. And then a Republican headquarters was burned somewhere, I think, in Oregon, again by a left-winger, again promoted by MSNBC, CNN, Maxine Waters, who every day tell them if you see a Republican out there, go up to them and confront them, basically. So we do have reasons for these things. There are triggers. There are triggers for it. And when you yell fire in a crowded theater, as Maxine Waters does, there are punishments for yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, either she's crazy or she's crazy, one or the other. I don't know who she thinks she's talking to with this kind of rhetoric, but she's got to be stopped by the U.S. Congress. She's violating that first clause of the First Amendment, in my estimation, by yelling fire in a crowded theater. She's actually inciting people to go out and hurt others. And I'll let Maxine Waters speak for herself and the kind of violence it is producing in this country, and how the newspapers and the TV stations are complicit in this violence against Republicans and conservatives and Trump supporters. What they have not yet seen is the counter-reaction, which will not be pretty at all. But that's a topic for another day. I don't want to get into it. I'm not a congressman. What you're about to hear on The Savage Nation is a piece of radio history. It's a very important and significant archival piece from The Savage Nation. Now let's listen. Are you an educated person who actually is faithful and believes in God? Because there's almost a dichotomy there. People call and often say to me, how can you believe in God and be a rational man? How can a rational man believe in a figment of the imagination, some kind of voodoo that was created to hoodwink people in ancient Palestine thousands of years ago, and which then spawned Islam and Christianity, by the way? Judaism was the progenitor of the three major religions. That's right. You may not know that, but it was Judaism first, then Christianity, then Islam. So the three Abrahamic religions, if you want to put it that way, the three monotheistic religions, go back to Judaism. And you say, well, it's all fake. How do you know? Come on. The guys were so wild in those days in Israel, those ancient olive growers. They had to be controlled, so they came up with some myth about somebody in heaven with a burning bush, and they scared them if they didn't do the right thing, they'd be punished in the next world. How can a rational person believe in God? Well, I'm a very rational person, as evidenced by a lot of things I've achieved. I think logically up to a point. But faith is something different than reason, isn't it? Isn't faith different than reason? That's why I say the title is God, Faith, and what? Not freedom. God, Faith, and what? God, Faith, and reason. Because I do not believe reason is incompatible with faith. Faith is something that you believe in. But it doesn't mean it's reasonable to believe in that entity, does it? Well, I believe in God. I personally, Michael Savage, I'm a super rational man up to a point. But I'm also a believer. Because of, well, just because of, I don't even want to spell it out. I'll spell it out for you in the book. And you can hear it in between the sentences of every word that I speak. You can hear it in the between my breath. You know, the mystical Jews say, the ones who are into Kabbalah, and I don't mean the actresses who are really, you know, whatever, let's put that aside. In other words, those who really study Kabbalah say that the actual writings about God are in the white spaces between the letters. I don't know if you ever heard that before. It's in the white spaces between the Hebrew letters that speaks about God. That's a real mind blower. That's a trip unto itself. Well, I'm going to say something to you you've never heard before. It is the blank spaces in talk radio that explains who the host is. What you don't hear, in between what you do hear, is what you should hear. Well, here in California, mainly San Francisco, the crime wave continues. Yep, the crime wave continues. A man robbed in Berkeley on Grizzly Peak. Second such incident in that location. The criminals are out of control because the police have been hamstrung by the wonderful, wonderful leaders in the backyard of Nancy Pelosi. They are empowered to attack with impunity because they know that the crimes will not be followed up because the police are intimidated. This is a direct result of 8 years of attacks on police by Obama and Eric Holder. Can you believe that? That's why I'm telling you, I got to turn away from it. So for your listening pleasure, I am going to read you some childhood stories from my book, Psychological Nudity, published in 2008. And it's not to sell you a book. They're out of print. I'm just to bring you up to speed. How about story number 1, The Electric Blue Saddle. Wait, let me read the exact title. The Electric Blue Saddle-Stitched Pants. Do you know that any one of the titles of my book would make for a movie? The Fly and the Tuna. Tough high school geometry teacher. All right, that wouldn't be a title. Happy and Sad Cufflinks. Woodchuck Bill. These are repertoire. This is my repertoire. Let me read you that one. Not Woodchuck Bill. I'm bored of that. Happy and Sad Cufflinks. I think that's me today anyway. I read years ago when I got nervous when I read Freud when I was 15. When he wrote that our personalities are formed by the time we're 5, I said, I'm cursed. I'm going to be like this forever? It's like an eternity. I'm never going to change. No, you never change. You're never going to. So Happy and Sad Cufflinks. So I write this. No question, if I was a kid in school today, let's say in the 6th grade, they'd put me on every mind-controlling drug imaginable. The mean-faced, clipped-haired women would say, that little savage, he has shining eyes, and he talks too much. Put him on Ritalin. Put him on Prozac. Put him on Adderall. Put him in a straitjacket. He shows all the classic signs of being a boy. We must kill it, kill it, kill it, crush it. I believe most mothers don't even know what their poor boys go through in school. When I was a young boy, my mother bought me a pair of cufflinks. They were a set of the thespian masks. You know, one was a sad face and one was a happy face. I loved those cufflinks. I'd look at them when I was bored in class. On my right cuff, I had the happy face. On the left cuff, I had the sad face. Some days, I'd switch them around and put the happy face, the happy face on the left sleeve and the sad face on the right sleeve. I'm sorry, I'm enjoying it. See, I knew I could cheer myself up. Many days, I was so bored I didn't know what to do. I'd look at these cufflinks for hours in the classroom while the teacher was going on and on about George Washington and the river. I was so bored I spaced out. I learned that George crossed the river. He saved the country in Trenton. He overthrew the British. I got that the first week of kindergarten. They're still teaching it to me in the 4th grade. In the 5th grade, I learned what a peninsula was. In the 6th grade, it took them a year to teach me what an island was. I couldn't take it. So I stared at the cufflinks, the happy face, the sad face, the sad face, the happy face. Then I got bored with the cufflinks. I started pulling hair out of the skin of my arms. Today, they would have put me on Ritalin or put me in a nut house. They'd call my lack of attention a disease. It was called boredom. I inflicted pain on myself rather than listen to the teacher bore me one more second. Rather than improve the curriculum, teachers today might say, oh, your son has something wrong with him, Mrs. Savage. We found out that he looks at cufflinks instead of listening to the teacher talk about how evil America is and why white males need to be put in the pillory. He's pulling hair out of his arm, and we'd suggest you put him on a moderate dose, just a moderate dose of Ritalin on the first date. That's for starters. Soon the teacher might say, let's put him on, whatever the drug of choice is. Now, I'd be the first to admit that teaching is a tough profession. Keeping the lesson engaging day after day takes everything out of you. As long as I live, I'll never forget the day I first walked into a classroom as a young teacher. Maybe I'll write a book about it one day. You know, something for the students. I'd call it The Savage Guide to Surviving Junior High School. Anyway, back then, I didn't look much older than the students. I had graduated high school at 16, which means I, in turn, graduated college very young. Frankly, I decided to grow a goatee to look older than the junior high school kids in my class. I remember when I raised my foot to walk over the curb the very first day I was going to teach, to step into that junior high school, and my foot froze up. I actually stopped mid-stride. My foot froze before it touched the step. Well, anyway, the students were racing past me to get to class, and I was standing there as stiff as a statue. I had no idea I had a fear of teaching, but I did. If you think teaching is an easy job, try it someday. It is probably one of the toughest jobs on earth if you do it right. So when I'm critical about the teaching profession and the teachers union, don't get me wrong, I fully recognize it's a tough drill. At the same time, there's no excuse for boring students to death. If an uneducated man like Woodchuck Bill could teach me about life, then surely I should be able to do the same with my college degree. At least that was my view. See, they were short and sweet. They were well written. They were actually classical stories in some. One-Armed Frank is a good one. Did I ever tell you about One-Armed Frank? My father knew a guy with one arm. I don't know how the guy became one arm, but you know, you didn't know a lot of people with one arm in those days. Even today, I guess you don't know one-armed people because they have fake arms. He had the arms sewn up in a suit. Nobody hid reality in those days. Today it's like, oh, yeah, he's normal. He's just like us. In those days, it was One-Armed Frank. Today it's like, oh, he's better than all. Man, he's special. Like if you have one arm, you're better than a guy with two arms today. You know what I mean? If you have no arms and no legs, you're Superman in the politically correct world. Now, I'm not trying to degrade people who lost their arms and legs in war or an accident. I'm making a broader point. In those days, if you were missing an arm, that's what you were named. Whatever your anomaly was, that was your name. It made it easier for the average person to remember everybody. It was sort of a Damon Runyon play. So, One-Armed Frank was a very sweet guy, but he had sick breath. Now, I want to tell you there are bad breaths, and then there are very bad breaths. Then there are medicinal breaths. This one had to be solved with a medicine that hasn't been invented yet. I remember one winter my old man was dropping Frank off at his home. Frank was in the passenger seat, and I sat in the back seat. It was minus 4 degrees out in New York, but we had to ride all the way from Manhattan out to Brooklyn with the windows open. Did you ever meet a person like this? Whenever he spoke, the car filled with a nauseous fume. Are we going past the Trun's meat factory, I asked. No, we're not in Williamsburg. Did we run over a small furry creature that got caught in the muffler, and the smell shot up through the floorboards? No. Did I step on something? You look at your shoes. No, it's Frank talking. Killing mice in the laboratory. That's a great story. Many of you don't know I left science and went into another field because I wouldn't kill mice anymore. I should tell you that story, but maybe you're bored already and want me to go back to Democrats and Republicans. Why them Dems? I got to tell you, if those Dems only did... Why, they're horrible. It's them Repubs that are no good, but I hate them and love them, and therefore I'm on the radio telling you about them. It's Dems, Republicans, Republicans, Dems, Dems, Republican. No, can't do it, no, can do. No. Yeah, millionaires and billionaires. Oh, I got the death of pets in here. When was this written? Hold it, I'm going to do one more. This is a great, great poem that I wrote way back in my archives. It was written August 1985, written in a lightning storm at 40,000 feet over Cheyenne, Wyoming, when I thought the plane was going to crash. I had another drink, and I wrote when pasta was spaghetti. So you liberals get ready to sneer, and you sane people get ready to enjoy it because it's a wonderful poem. Try to imagine. Are you ready? Here we go. The hairy forearms of New York serve you your coffee with a turning gesture, an offering that says, drink, eat, enjoy. The wiry Italian in Vincent's Clam Bar, the one behind the greased-over register. The young kid connected, the one who receives his deference from the spaghetti cook, older than his gangster father. The spaghetti cook who looks like an old-fashioned doctor from the Bronx with clipped mustache. He actually pulls some long noodles out of the pot and eats them as they cook, looking to the grimy ceiling for his tender answer. Well, I used to call it spaghetti. Now it's pasta at $20 a plate. The smoky windows of Romeo's Spaghetti now offer radios and knickknacks. It was only 50 cents a plate then. In neon letters that you couldn't miss even through a fogged-over window on a cold winter's eve, there was life. Marinara sauce that tasted of the sea. Noodles as long as your young arm. meatballs as fluffy as your dreams of them, bread on the table that you'd eat against your parents' admonition that would, the meal is coming, don't eat the bread. And men, some burly, with black hairy forearms, whose smiles scared you, and little skinny guys with the look of murder on their faces, and people who slurped their spaghetti straight to their mouths from the plate, one motion like Chinese shoveling rice at mouth with clicking sticks. That was gusto before it became a beer ad. That was taste before it became a synonym for fashion. That was spaghetti before it became pasta.
Savage.
More Yale freshmen identify as LGBTQ than conservative, survey finds. Let me repeat it if you missed it. Remember the once great Yale? More Yale freshmen identify as LGBTQ than conservative, survey finds. But wait, there's more for your money if you think that's bad. Are you ready for it? This demographic of LGBTQ outnumbers Protestants and Catholics. I'm not making this up. The number of people ushered into Yale by the LGBTQ radical activists in the admissions department has now reached a point then the number of LGBTQ individuals exceeds that of conservative. And queer freshmen, that's what they call themselves, used to be a slur, and now it's considered a noble thing to be. Queer freshmen even outnumber other sizable demographics in the class, including Protestants and Catholics. I'm not making any of this up. This is what happens when radicals take over universities, corporations, or any other major enterprise. And if you think this is good for learning, if you think this is good for the advancement of America, I would disagree with you. Because if you're choosing people based upon their sexual orientation rather than upon, let us say, their intellectual orientation, you will destroy the institution. It's that simple. Now, it is possible that all of the LGBTQ individuals who are picked for Yale are geniuses. They're all Einsteins and such, and they're going to advance society, but I kind of doubt it. When you see that the survey of freshman students at Yale, that more of them identify in this LGBTQ pot than as conservative or as Catholic or as Protestant, when according to a 2018 Gallup poll, only 4.5% of all Americans identified in this subcategory, this subpopulation of LGBTQ. What does that tell you about Yale and the other major universities? It tells you that you shouldn't waste your money by sending your children to the Ivy League schools. I could give it another name, but it's a family show. We could say it's gone from the Ivy League to the, I'll just be polite about it, the Jivy League in one generation. That's not too mean, is it, to call it the Jivy League? But the point is that this type of affirmative action is destroying not only Yale, but destroying every institution of higher learning in America. You're better off sending your son Joe to a trade school where he could learn how to be an electrician or a plumber, rather than sending him to Yale where he'll learn some other plumbing techniques. This is the Savage Nation. If you want to read more about the sad state of America in these hysterical times, I suggest you go to michaelsavage.com and read the article, More Yale Freshmen Identify as LGBTQ Than Conservative, or as Protestant, or as Catholic. If you think that's an advancement of society, I would disagree with you. At the same time, check out Stop Mass Hysteria, because we're running a contest on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Those who get the most likes for the best one-liners about the book will receive a free copy of Stop Mass Hysteria. Just go up to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and send us your best line about the book. Those with the most likes win a free copy.